Greetings, welcome to Pop's Collection, where we normally dissect and reflect on a movie or TV show from my Pop's Collection. But I think today, being a special day that it's our 100th episode, we're going to do a freeform discussion around one of the topics we kick around, sooner or later. So anyway, I'm Ron Tweedy. This is Pops.
Howdy, everybody. How you doing? Thank you for listening. Thank you for our 100th episode. Wow. Hard to believe that you've tolerated me this long. It's pretty awesome. I do have to say, you are more the Marvel guy, and I'm probably a little bit more DC. I love Marvel a lot.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to this particular thing, so let's introduce the topic. The topic is who has a better rogues gallery, Batman or Spider-Man? And to me, I think you can make the case, like you said, normally, in general, I'd say, yeah, absolutely Marvel over DC, but Batman over Spider-Man is a totally different conversation because,
Well, yeah, and it is, of course, everybody has their own opinion.
Right.
One way or another. Mm-hmm. But let's see, by this time, I'm guessing Batman is like 80-something years old, 85.
Sure.
And Spider-Man, I don't know, I think he's in his 70s, right?
62 or 64, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So probably, it's in his 60s. So he's a little bit younger.
Right.
We also...
But I would have to say that the majority of Golden Age Batman... the villains introduced there, a lot of it was just like crime fighting stuff or, basically ripped off of old Shadow stories. So, how much are we really pulling from there versus, really the more colorful villains they're not like getting introduced.
Well, we have to say the more colorful ones are super villains.
I guess.
I would think, we have a large amount of villains that we could, look at.
Right.
Especially in both ways because you have actually, for both of them, you have a different class of villains. Some villains, like for Spider-Man, you have villains that control the elements. You have villains that are deceivious, who use magic. You have other ones that are animal-like. So, you have quite a few different things.
But you have that with Batman, too.
Yeah, but I think they're just a little bit different in some ways.
Okay.
For instance, if you compared the Lizard for Spider-Man to Killer Croc, they're like not really close in.
But Man-Bat would be closer to Lizard.
Closer to. Yeah, maybe you're right. That's true.
That's my point. Is that we have now decades of villains, and so you're going to obviously get some crossover no matter what.
True that. But who would you say? Let's try to class it as. Well, who's your favorite Spider-Man villain, for instance?
Okay. I'd have to go with Venom. That's probably the first one I think of more. And I don't like Venom as a hero, so that's a different category. Venom as a villain, I like that. Because you have, I think the beauty of that storytelling, you've got, Tom McFarlane, doing the art around that time.
And we're talking about the Eddie Brock Venom?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Eddie Brock, yeah.
All right, good deal.
So you have a person who is obsessed with Peter Parker, as a rival, and then you have the symbiote who is, also been rejected by Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and then they come together, and then you have a brand new villain that not only hates Spider-Man, but also knows him intimately because of the symbiote's relationship with him. And to me, I think that is one of the most interesting villains when it comes to any of them, because it really does strike at the core of, Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Both of them are it's a big threat to both of them, not just one or the other.
Correct. Yeah. Well,
so Venom is probably my favorite.
That makes for an interesting story arc, definitely.
Yeah.
I guess for Batman, for me, my favorite's always been the Joker.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
perennial.
Exactly, because even though he's psychotic, he's just super intelligent, and he always seems to be able to come up with a way to confuse or misdirect the world's greatest detective.
Yeah, well, and I guess it depends on what version of Joker that we're talking about, right?
That's true.
Because there's so many different versions, and even not even counting the comics, you have in other media, you have Joker. The one that Mark Hamill portrays is vastly different than, say, Jared Leto's version of the Joker.
Oh yes,
which is vastly different than Joaquin Phoenix's version of the Joker.
Yes, and
so
even though they're all vastly different, they are each good in their own way.
Some more good than others.
Absolutely, but they. For instance, in the my latest Justice League, the Zack Taylor version, Zack Snyder version, we had a apocalyptic scene at the back with Joker working with Batman.
That's right. Yep.
And so that was an interesting character arc also there. But for the most part, he has always been Batman's biggest foe, I'm going to say.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously the equivalent would be like Green Goblin to Peter Parker.
Yes, definitely. Oh, and Green Goblin's another one who knew Peter's identity.
Sure.
And the way that Batman's been written, there's really not too many that know his identity.
Yeah.
So you get, when somebody finds out his identity, it's a big thing. And DC kind of, molds things around it where things are going, looks like somebody might find out.
Right.
And so, and they keep that going story arc sometimes for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Same
thing with Peter Parker. I mean, really the big event that happens in Civil War, in the mid-2000s is when his identity becomes public. But up until then, he was very careful about guarding his identity. So.
Right. And they, for whatever reason, comic book writers have always thought it to be like the most important thing that you keep your secret identity.
Well, it depends on the hero. I mean, obviously the Fantastic Four were out in the public since the very beginning.
Right.
And sometimes it's kind of a hack way to do it. I mean, obviously Thor had his Donald Blake character, that alter ego. You had Iron Man being Tony Stark's bodyguard. So you're right. That was kind of a ploy, but there were exceptions to the rule. Fantastic Four being one of them.
Yes, but we have to thank Stan Lee for that.
Yeah.
His way of developing a comic book story was more about relating to the reader than to be telling a story like a lot of the DC stories were not relatable in the beginning.
Yeah, maybe.
Other than when you got to characters like Green Arrow. And I think Batman also falls into that category because he really doesn't have any superpowers.
I would agree.
Whereas Superman was not a very relatable character.
No.
Although very popular.
But it was wish fulfillment, right? I mean,
yes.
That's what it boils down to. So.
But I just don't know how many children got hurt from trying to jump off the shed roof with a towel. I used to run around with a towel tied around my neck, pretending I could fly. But I have to say that I was smart enough never to jump off the roof of the shed or anything. But I'm sure there were that did, that wish they could be Superman. But we are talking about villains. So.
Right, yeah. And, definitely I would say that Superman doesn't really have a lot of compelling villains.
No, actually.
Comparatively speaking. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty.
He's got quite a few, but most of his are intellectual villains.
Yeah, or magical.
Yes, or magical, which he doesn't do good with magic.
Right.
But all right, so you're going to say that your number one villain is Venom?
For Spider-Man, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right, well then, and Joker is number one for me. How about number two for Spider-Man?
Oh, okay.
I mean, you have a lot of choices.
Sure.
And we'll just go to the top three, okay?
Okay. Well, I want to say my top three Batman ones too. Okay.
Okay. Well, you can do that. Who's your top Batman villain?
Right now, I think Two-Face. I've been thinking a lot about that. I guess because obviously we just did the Long Halloween series, but I do think that he represents an interesting facet of justice, and he goes from district attorney to villain, and how he perverts justice and things like that. I think he provides a good foil for both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like Dent was supposed to be the other side to Batman. So what happens is, when you want to catch a bad guy and put them behind bars or whatever, you want to go through Dent first. But sometimes, because Dent is the law, he can't necessarily do things that
he wasn't supposed to do things outside the law.
Looking at the Dark Knight in particular, I'm thinking like the Dark Knight version.
Yes.
Right. So I think that to me, I think that I like that. I'd say, yeah, Two-Face probably is my favorite.
Well, I think that's pretty interesting.
No, I'm sorry. I take it back.
You already said no. Take back.
No, it's okay.
No, you can.
No, it's good. But
you could say.
I also think. So I say I make Two-Face my second favorite, right? So Two-Face 2. All right. Number one has to be Bane.
Okay, which version of Bane?
The comics version of Bane, created by Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan.
Okay.
It is way better than the. I mean, not way better, but it is a lot better than the Ra's al Ghul version. I don't like that. I mean, that one's not as cool. But him being in a Cuban prison, being raised inside of a prison, getting the the injections or whatever to make him super huge and rough, and that to me is
I would say that was a good version. Definitely.
Yeah, like that. Just that you see the brutality. Obviously, it illustrates the brutality of communist government and how it really abuses its citizens. So you get that angle, and then you get this unstoppable force of strength that is so powerful it breaks the Bat's back. I mean, that is, to me, I think one of the more scarier villains. Someone who can really do that to Batman. Yeah. So I in my opinion, I think Bane is it's probably my favorite now. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go Bane for your number one.
Yeah.
I went Joker, my number one.
Yeah.
You went Venom as your number one Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say my number one, Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was, as I was growing up.
Yeah.
That was always the story arcs with Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
Was some of the greatest reads that I can remember.
Yeah.
So I just thought that the way he was drawn, and the way that he was able to move around in the comics, of course he could do it a lot better. Not until we got to the first Tobey Maguire one did we get a version relatively similar.
Yeah.
To the Doc Ock from the comics.
Right.
And, but for me, that is definitely my number one.
Yeah. No, that's well deserved. I mean, you had someone who could challenge Peter Parker's intellect as well as strength.
Yes.
So that's kind of, definitely up there. I agree.
Right. And I know this is going to sound off the wall, but since you did your 1 and 2 for Batman, I'm going to do my number 2 for Spider-Man.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to say it's Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, okay.
For whatever reason, I just love his costume, his
it's
outfit,
interesting. Yeah.
With the 2 lion skins for the vest, with, the manes as shoulders. He was always, to me, the coolest. Mm-hmm. And because he really was not a superhero type guy, he was a hunter.
Right, yeah, not superpowered. Yeah.
Right, he wasn't superpowered.
I think he actually got the better of Peter.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so one of the few to actually best him.
Yes, so. On occasion he had done that.
Yeah.
Of course, in the end, Peter always came back.
Yeah.
But, I always loved that character.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so I have my 2, and you have your 2 Batman.
Yeah.
So...
What about your second Batman?
My second Batman, again, I hate to say it, but I really liked the Poison Ivy character.
Okay.
Because I felt like that particular character was and we saw that in the Long Halloween, how that she could manipulate Batman.
Yeah. And it's one of those villains where it's not, she actually does have some sort of powers, as opposed to just like a weird tech or whatever. She actually can control plants.
Right.
And use them to hypnotize people with the the pheromones of the plants.
Of the different plants, yes. And she, in some aspects, she had a poison kiss where she could kill somebody.
Right.
So, and it didn't affect her.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to say that she's my number 2. I want to give the girl a shot on there, too.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so you're number 2 for
Spider-Man, I guess, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Lizard.
Very good.
Yeah, I like you have a tragic character, Kurt Connors, very smart man, loses an arm. He tries to experiment with gene therapy to regrow limbs like lizards do, and then it ends up going haywire. Classic Frankenstein type of story.
Yes.
And Spider-Man does have this where the villain's alter ego is actually a friend of his, and so he has to he can't just kill this villain or hurt this villain. He doesn't want to because it's his friend.
Right.
So, you have that extra angle in there. Which
did you like the way that they did the character in the Amazing Spider-Man movie? Or
I'll have to be honest with you, I completely forgot about it. I don't even know who plays him. Who plays Lizard?
That's a good question.
See, I don't even remember. That's how forgettable that particular movie was.
Right. Well.
So anyway,
I don't know why they chose to come out with those particular movies.
Well, they wanted to keep the movie rights. That's why Sony did it. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, again, as I told you before, and we had a discussion of the 77 version of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You can't even get the copies of that.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Okay, Lizard. Good choice for that's your number 2.
For Spider-Man. Yeah.
For Spider-Man.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got 1 and 2
yep.
for both Spider-Mans and Batman.
Yeah.
So we just need number 3s for both.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our number 3s for Spider-Man first.
Okay.
And if you want, I will go first.
Yeah,
if you like.
I just went, so you go.
Okay. All right, that's good. Well, I'm going to take you away that the only reason I love this is this character to me was just great in one of the movies that really wasn't that memorable, but Rhino is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love the way he was portrayed in the comic books. Most definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, the actor that portrayed him...
Yeah, Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti did a wonderful job in that movie.
Mm.
So, yes, he is going to be my number 3.
Okay.
And I actually liked the costume version that they had in the movie because it really felt like it would have been more believable.
Mm.
You know, because Rhino is one of those characters almost like Juggernaut.
Yeah.
You know, so very similar.
Yep.
But here he has this Rhino costume with the rhino horn, and he can do all these things, but it makes more sense to me that if the rhino was made out of a heavier material, it would definitely do a better job of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's my number 3 for Spider-Man.
All right.
Your number 3 for Spider-Man?
I'm going to go a little bit more obscure and go with Arcade.
Arcade. I think I remember that character.
Yeah, so...
He was in the MODOK thing, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. So, he's the type of character who creates these, elaborate games of death and puts people in it. So, he also made an appearance in the video game Spider-Man and X-Men, Arcade's Revenge. So,
Okay. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so you have somebody who just, takes the hero, throws them in a crazy situation, and tries to kill him that way. So...
Okay, so... almost kind of like a Jigsaw thing from the horror movie.
Sure.
So I wonder if they got the idea from Arcade. Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay, so we've got our 1, 2, 3s for Spider-Man. Now, our third Batman villain.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to go... Did I do my third Spider-Man?
You just did it right now?
Yeah, I did right now. Okay. All right, my third Batman villain, top 3, I have to say, is going to be the Riddler.
Okay. Yeah.
And I particularly enjoyed the Frank Gorshin version in the 60s Batman TV series.
Okay, yeah.
He... portrayed more to way the character looked in the comics. And he just had this voice that he had this just little psychotic bend when he was talking.
Sure.
And you could just tell that he was just so looking. He wanted Batman to die. He wanted to come up with something that was going to take him down. So that's going to be my number 3.
Okay.
Plus, he had a cool green costume with question marks.
Yeah, that was cool.
All right, for you?
I think I'd say Mr. Freeze.
But not the Arnold version.
No, the animated series version in particular.
Oh, well, that was a really good from the Batman animated series.
Yeah, the fact that, his beloved Nora, that he would do anything to save her.
Yes.
And, having a tragic villain that, is willing to go to extreme lengths to save the woman that he loves. And, him turning to villainy because of that. I think that's an interesting motivation for a bad guy.
Right. Well, because the story goes that he requires the diamonds to make the lower temperatures to be able to do that. And we kind of had that conversation with our Big Hero 6 episode.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Somebody who would do anything to get their beloved back.
Right.
Well, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to suggest to any of our listeners out there, we just did our top 3.
Yeah.
However, we would love to hear your top 3.
Sure. Yep.
And who do you think has the better villains, maybe?
Yeah.
Spider-Man or Batman?
Yeah.
I mean, there's room either way for that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
How can they get a hold of us, Ron?
Well, I would say you can just put a comment in the comment box for YouTube or even Facebook, or you can email us at popcollectionpodcast@gmail.com, or you can drop us a line on Twitter or any of those social media pages that we're on. So
yes, we would totally love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, thank you for listening all this time.
Yep.
And if this is your first episode, our 100th, I suggest you go back and listen to the others.
Right. We're planning on upping the quality of the episodes, so they should be a little bit more fun, interactive, and so stay tuned. More is coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Goodbye. God bless.
Goodbye. God bless, and tell your friends.